Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
For 2 hours, I'll be keeping you company here on TV and radio with the stories that matter across the country. We've plenty coming up, including in the face of the strike action, adverse weather and pressure on our NHS, are we really and truly prepared for Christmas 22? I'll be talking to a top lineup of guests and getting their takes on the best way through the strikes and the chill. But first, let's bring you right up to date with all of the day's news. Here's Tamsin Roberts.
Alastair, thank you very much. Good afternoon from the GB newsroom. It's 12:01. Police in Jersey have confirmed one person has died following a large explosion in St Helier. The blast happened at a block of flats in the early hours of the morning. A search and rescue effort is underway with around a dozen people said to be missing. Jersey Police Chief Officer Robin Smith told a news conference the fire service had been called to the area the previous night after residents reported the smell of gas. He warned the number of people killed could still climb.
We have a three-storey building that has completely collapsed. Described as, from a demolition point of view, probably as a pancake that has just dropped almost sort of straight down. It is considerable destruction. And there are also damage to a nearby building as well, another set block of flats, which we need to sort of make safe, or fire service need to make safe. So it is a pretty devastating scene, I regret to say.
Manchester Airport has been forced to temporarily close both runways because of heavy snow affecting dozens of flights. Severe cold weather warnings are in place across Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales, the southwest and southeast of England this weekend, with temperatures dropping as low as -10 degrees in some isolated areas. The Met Office says the conditions could cause travel disruption. There's also a chance some rural areas could be cut off. Power supplies could also be affected. RMT General Secretary Mick Lynch has called for an urgent meeting with the Prime Minister. It's to try to resolve the long-running dispute over pay and conditions for rail workers. Union members are due to stage 2 48-hour strikes next week, following months of industrial action over the deadlocked row. Millions of people are expected to watch England take on defending World Cup champions France in tonight's quarter-final in Qatar. Manager Gareth Southgate says they're better prepared for success than 4 years ago, but that this will be the team's toughest test so far at the tournament. At home, supporters dare to dream in south-east London at the Kirby Estate in Bermondsey. Residents are cautiously optimistic.
I think we're going to win. I think, as I said before, I was talking to these, that we're going to win 2-0. I'm very confident.
After yesterday, I don't know what to think anymore. Some of the games yesterday were absolutely incredible. I mean, to be a neutral watching them is amazing, but to actually be a supporter, I mean, if we got a game like that tonight, I'm going to be all over the place. But if we can do what we've been doing, yeah, I reckon we've got a chance.
Well, the French are just as excited about the clash in Paris. Journalist Sarah Menai says they're ready for the showdown.
It's a quarter-final against England. It's a crunch in football on a Saturday night at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock French time. So I think everybody tonight in France is going to be watching. It's such a special game, an old rivalry, an old fight between two brothers. So I think everybody is really passionate now here about this game.
Around 200 migrants have been intercepted crossing the Channel this morning. One group managed to land on a beach at Samphire Hoe near Dover. They've now been taken to the Manston Processing Centre. Calmer conditions are reportedly making the journey easier today. Over 44,000 people have crossed the Channel so far this year. A domestic abuse charity has paused operations over safety fears after the royal race row. It comes after Ngozi Fulani spoke about her treatment by Prince William's godmother, Lady Susan Hussey, who repeatedly asked her where she really came from during a reception at Buckingham Palace. The Sister Space charity founder says she and her team received horrific abuse on social media. The charity says it will reinstate its services as soon as it's safe to do so. NASA's Orion spacecraft is making its way back to Earth after a 25-day trip around the moon. The uncrewed capsule, which is designed to carry astronauts, has travelled more than 1.4 million miles. It's expected to land in the Pacific Ocean tomorrow afternoon. If the splashdown is successful, humans will board the craft for the next lunar mission in 2024. The King says the reassuring presence of ancient trees and woodlands is a fitting tribute to his late mother. The monarch's words are part of a foreword for a new book called The Queen's Green Canopy. It features photos of 70 age-old trees and 70 historic woodlands, which were dedicated to Queen Elizabeth to mark her Platinum Jubilee. The book will be published in June, but its images are currently on display at a public exhibition in London. This is GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens, of course. Now, though, back to Alastair.
Thanks, Tamsin. It is 6 minutes past midday. Our gave our grandson his first Advent calendar. As the days tick down to his first Christmas, he flicks it open and it yields a happy, festive image each day. The pessimistic in me just wondered if there might be a market for a slightly more truthful, slightly more negative Advent calendar. Frosty windows, as many will delay putting the heating on or even putting it up a little further. Relatives flying in from abroad delayed at passport control at the borders due to the strikes by border force workers. Trains for that seasonal family gathering stuck in the sidings due to the rail workers' strikes. A less than groaning dinner table as big old turkeys were in short supply. And this very day, the National Farmers Union warns of a supply chain crisis in agriculture. Also, of course, Christmas cards yet to be delivered due to the postal strikes. Cars skidding around as salt is perhaps a little short in supply. And then tables full of medicines that you've purchased from your local chemist, as there's little hope of seeing a GP, or worse still, getting to hospital and being nursed back to good health. One can barely imagine it all, but that is the grim reality of Christmas 22 in much of the United Kingdom. An advent calendar to reflect what we are likely to be seeing, and we are certainly seeing in the newspapers this very morning. Today's Times has led with misery on the railways. The Mail warns readers not to fall ill or to rely on trains and forget to send Christmas cards as strikes hold Britain hostage, they say. So today we're looking at how well set we really are as individuals and indeed as a collective nation for the trials that we all face. We have a GP, a transport spokesperson, a labour relations expert or two, and an expert in child psychology here with me on the programme to explain the reality, and it might not quite match the hopes that those little ones have got for this Christmas. But do you tell it to them straight, or do you kind of try and cosy it up a little bit so it doesn't shatter all of their hopes and dreams this time of year? And we would genuinely love to hear from you. Send your thoughts to us at gbviews@gbnews.uk, or tweet me or tweet at gbnewsdirect, or, of course, you can go on Facebook. Most of you so far have said, get a grip, it'll be fine, don't panic. I like that very much. Usual channels. I'm delighted to be joined live in the studio now by GB News political reporter Olivia Utley. Is there, on the political front, much hope that you see or hear of any of these industrial actions, predominantly in the public sector, although the railways are slightly different? There's a public sector interest in it as well. But the postal workers, the nurses and what have you, there's Mick Lynch this morning saying Rishi Sunak's got to get a grip and he's got to come in.
Yes, Rishi Sunak is in a very difficult position because, on the one hand, he's a pretty new Prime Minister. He's not hugely popular. The Conservatives have been going through a turbulent time anyway. And the last thing he wants is his premiership to be overshadowed by all these strikes. And he's worried, of course, that people will see what's happening and just blame the government, as people automatically do when things go wrong. So he does want to engage. He does want to find some sort of solution to these crises. But at what cost? Mick Lynch's demands that driver-only trains are scrapped, meaning much more staff on the railways, would mean a huge outlay for our already groaning treasury. So Rishi Sunak really doesn't want to give in there, and he's worried that if he does and he pushes to a higher pay rise, higher than 8%, which is what he's offered at the moment, then he's going to have to echo that across the rest of the public services. So he's still holding his ground at the moment. The best... What he's trying to do to get a bit of movement is threatening this legislation, which he's saying he might bring in the new year, which would curtail the rights of strikers. And that, he's hoping, will be enough to push the unions into agreeing to some sort of negotiation. But so far, it's not looking hugely promising.
Being brutal, is there a political upside for him to see this through and see them down?
Well, there is an argument. Ian Austin wrote a good piece in the former Labour MP, wrote a very good piece in the Mail a couple of days ago saying that he thinks that this is actually going to backfire on Labour. And if you compare it to the general strike of 1926, when the TUC called a strike, and actually the public sided with the government and it was good for the Conservatives.
I'm sure you've seen it already, but I also draw your attention, if you haven't, and those who are kind enough to be watching and listening to us, to a leader in the Times this morning that says Sir Keir Starmer cannot be the newfound friend of big business, as he tried to proclaim at the CBI recently, and remain neutral on industrial action, be it in the private or the public sector.
Absolutely. And we know that Keir Starmer is treading a very, very tricky line here, because he does want to seem like the sort of Blairite, open to business, we're the competent party with one. But also, of course, his party is beholden to the unions, so he can't go too far against the unions. And, of course, he's got Angela Rayner, his deputy, at his side.
Well, the RMT's no friend of Labour.
No, exactly. Well, yeah, and Angela Rayner is sort of saying that the strikers are doing a good job, which isn't the sort of language which is particularly helpful to Keir Starmer. But You might think that would help Rishi Sunak out. Actually, when it comes down to it, the polling just sort of suggests that people look at what's going on and they think the government's in crisis, the government can't run the country. And that's what Rishi Sunak's going to be very afraid of.
All right, as always, Olivia, great to see you and great to talk to you. Back out there onto the laptop and the phone, and then come back and see us at 1 o'clock and bring us up to date with anything that may or may not have happened. Most grateful for that. Sitting here live in the studio with me as well and listening to that conversation, I'm delighted to say is a good friend of this programme. That's Jim Dale, who's the senior meteorologist at British Weather Services. He came up with the nickname the Troll of Trondheim, that I think sounds slightly Wagnerian. And didn't you coin Beast from the East as well?
Yes, a long time ago. Got it on the front
ITN
page.
Productions are making a film about.
Yeah, I'm probably not. I'm probably not in it, not as the Beast or anything else, but nonetheless, I think it was about 20 years ago. My memory fades, but I got a front page on one of the national newspapers with this big Yeti when the Beast, if you like, the easterly winds came in and gave us perhaps what we're not quite getting at this moment in time, because the reason it was called the Troll from Trondheim was the direction of travel. But
this one is the naughty from the north more, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Exactly that. We were watching it 2 weeks ago now and first reported on it, and we were saying this looks like it's got our name on it, and it's going to come across Norway, hence the name The Troll. Because there was a Netflix film out, or there is at the same time, called The Troll. So I knitted the two together like you do.
From everything that you've read and seen and the folk that I know you talk to constantly, do you get the sense that local government and central government have got a grip on this and are poised to react to it positively? But because, as Olivia was saying, for government, there can be a political upside if you handle a strike well and win it. There can also be a political upside if you deal with a climactic crisis and are seen to do it well.
Yeah, except to say this is not a 2010-11 event, which if people can remember that was universal snow and basically crippling the country by its own devices, if you like. This hasn't quite got there yet. Yes, it's cold. Yes, it's freezing. Yes, there's been some snow around, a little bit more today, by the way, than there was yesterday and the day before. So it is starting to spread. And yes, Alistair, it's going to go on a little bit more. I think any government, any local authority, if they get to grips with any extreme of weather, whether we're talking this type of weather or the summertime when it was really hot, and it's time when you have to give advice to particularly those that are not necessarily aware what to do. If they get on top of it, I think they get points.
I put my hat and my thick gloves on this morning, having listened to the weather forecast first thing this morning, where the headline seemed to be freezing fog. That seemed to be the thing they were most worried about. Yeah, when we get into a situation with lack of wind, then it's always going to be the case. It's the motorist nightmare. You go from a clear position, nice clear air, which polar air normally is, into a dip on a motorway or on a smaller road, and yeah, it's difficult. One of the major impacts of weather is always going to be transport, the effect of it, whether Absolutely.
We're talking trains, leaves on line.
I'm talking to a local authority guy later on about grit and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think, as I say...
You're a long-term forecaster as well. That's what we've often talked about in the past.
Yeah.
How long do you see this going on, and will the happy punchline be a white Christmas?
OK, that's the big dollar question, isn't it, basically? And I need to impress upon you, I've got an interest in terms of the fact that I actually advise to the major bookmakers with this, day on day, day in, day out, making sure I've got some odds here. These are our percentage odds. This is not what you'll see from the bookmakers. This is what we think. Ongoing, look, the actual cold spell we're in now, the Troll, I think it will last another week, and I think it gets usurped from the southwest. Now, as it does so, that warm air is going to move into the very cold, frigid air. Particularly in the north, there'll be another snow event before it warms up. But behind that, and it's still a long way to go to Christmas, I think the cold air will then come in from a more traditional direction, the northwest. Could leave us with a few wintry showers on the day and me having headaches, trying to count the snowflakes, where they are and all the rest of it, because there's another part of my job. So that's what I've got coming. But I think we can safely say, I think anyway, that in a week's time we should be seeing the end of the Troll weather.
Well, we'll be in touch with you again, I'm sure. Jim, it's always a pleasure to talk to you.
And you.
Thanks very much.
Can I give you an early Christmas present?
You can indeed. I said to my producer, he always has that brilliant book with him, which is marvellous. How kind you are.
You're welcome.
Jim Dale. I don't know if there is a trade union representing meteorologists and forecasters, but if there was, he'd be the shop steward. Undoubtedly. Jim Dale, Senior Meteorologist at British Weather Services. Now, for a political view on the current situation, I'm delighted to be joined by Steve McCabe, who is the Labour Member of Parliament for Birmingham, Selly Oak, and a good friend of this programme, and a regular, which is always nice to say, and it's jolly good to see you. Do you sense, to pick up that point I was making, that because of the great work that people like Jim does, central government and local government have no excuse but to be ready for this cold spell in terms of keeping the schools open, getting us out and about on safe roads and walking on safe pavements?
Good afternoon, Alastair. Well, I mean, in terms of the amount of data and information they're getting, there's not much excuse. But I don't think this government's showing much sense of being prepared for anything in recent times. And of course, the challenge for local government is resources.
Is there anything different, you think, that if Labour had been in power, that it would or could have done to ease some of the industrial action, whether it's the communication workers, who I'm going to be talking to in a moment, or the rail unions? And we heard this morning Mick Lynch saying he wants face-to-face talks with Mr Sunak. We've got the nurses round the corner and the rest of it. Would you have done anything differently?
Well, I think we wouldn't have sought a climate of confrontation. I think the evidence from the last Labour government, most obvious in the health area, is where we had agenda for change, where we were able to work with unions, help people look at career options, promotional opportunities, training opportunities, everything that made the career worthwhile, as well as pay. And of course, we didn't have any strikes at all during the entire period of that government.
You and I are both almost old enough to remember Barbara Castle and In Place of Strife. Trying to get a grip on industrial action that disrupts the public has always been a very tricky call for Labour. But as the Times says this morning in its leader, you can't be the new buddies of the CBI if you remain neutral on industrial action, which is ruining people's lives.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose the difference is Barbara Castle was trying to address wildcat strikes. This industrial action is legal. It's action that's taking place under laws passed by a previous Conservative government. I mean, I wouldn't say Labour was neutral. We actually believe that all of these workers have a legitimate case, and what we're saying is the government should facilitate meaningful and helpful negotiations. And actually, I have to say, from the people I've spoken to, people are realistic. They're not oblivious to the economic circumstances of the country, but what they do feel is that the government is deliberately taking advantage of the situation, clear with the railways.
But Steve, you're a reasonable man, you always have been. Wouldn't even you accept on that basis that there are some duties, some jobs and responsibility within the economy, whether it's getting people and goods from A to B, or whether it's running hospitals and keeping people healthy and making them better if they fall ill, where there should be minimum standard requirements? Below this line, you may not go.
Yes, and I think it is government's responsibility to create minimum standard requirements, but it's also the responsibility to try and ensure that things don't get to the crisis point that we're reaching now.
Steve, great to talk to you. Thank you very much for breaking into your weekend to share time with us. And whatever you've got planned, I hope you have a pleasant festive season. And stay warm and don't go slipping and sliding there in Selly Oak. Great to see you. Thanks, Steve. Steve McCabe, Labour MP for Birmingham, Selly Oak. Now, as Steve and I were just talking there, and as Olivia was saying as well, the NHS has been under huge amounts of pressure for quite some time, and it seems that can only get worse for winter. and make sure that can we make sure that our health service can cope? To discuss that, I'm delighted to be joined by Dr. David Lloyd, who is an NHS GP and has often appeared on GB News, for which we are very grateful. From everything that you are seeing at the front line, do you sense that the NHS is prepared for what is obviously going to be a tricky winter, not only of nurses' industrial action, but just the sheer cold and more people falling poorly, let alone kids with strep B? Is NHS up to it?
Golly, that's a very difficult question. We're certainly feeling the effects of this very early Group A strep condition at the moment. The peak has arrived very early. Normally we expect it in February, but because of all the timetable and the COVID and the pandemic, it's upset the timing of these things. So we're getting a huge surge in streptococcal infections at the moment, which is putting a lot of strain on us. And you lot in the media have really done a marvellous job of getting everybody very worried about it. So our A&E departments and our GP surgeries are filling up with thousands of worried well. But really, the incidence of serious illness in this condition is 1 in 6,000. So I'd have to treat 6,000 people with penicillin to prevent one serious complication of Group A strep. It's a condition that's been around for years. Doctors and nurses know how to recognize it, and I can talk to you about that as well. And extraordinary for modern bugs, it always gets better with a very old-fashioned penicillin. So it's a very well-known and it's a very treatable condition. But the trouble is that when young children in particular, it can be confused with viral infections, which again are very common at the moment. So we've got a lot of worried mothers and fathers and carers of their children who are really seeking help as much as they can through 111, their GP services.
Absolutely. And tell me this, David, how are you finding it yourself at the front line? The reason I ask that is because I got a very helpful text message from my local GP surgery who are really good at communications. And they just said, look, if you want to see a GP, it really does have to be, it has to be really serious, which hopefully it always would be. And they were quite clear. It was partly because increasing numbers of people need sick notes at this time of year because they are genuinely poorly and cannot go to work and would lose money. Secondly, mums and dads worried about little ones with rashes and all the rest of it and fevers and so on. What are you finding it at your front line like, David?
Well, it is exceptionally busy, yes. I mean, we're all working very late into the night and we're getting a lot of queries. And we're seeing a lot of patients face-to-face because sometimes you've got a sick child with a fever and it's something you can't deal with on the telephone or a video. You really do need to see them. An interesting quirk of this condition is that if you've got darker skins, you can't actually see the rash typical for scarlet fever. So you actually need to put your hand on and have a feel for that classic sandpaper feel. So, yeah, there are real issues to do with access and getting to general practitioners at the moment, but we really would rather the worried well, so to speak, to stay away and not fill up our departments because it makes it that much more difficult to pick up the really seriously ill patients. And that's the difficulty in getting this balance right, isn't it? We're all talking about it, we're all thinking about it, but we're getting a lot of people who, at the first stage is, ring your doctor or go and see your doctor because you're worried about it, and can I have some penicillin just in case? And then the pharmacy is empty of penicillin. We can't get amoxicillin syrup or penicillin syrup now. So we're asking parents to crush up adult tablets to give to their children. So it's an extraordinary sort of gathering storm. And in amongst all that are some very elderly people who are going to get cold this winter, who are going to get viruses, who are going to get COVID, who are going to get flu. And we've got them to worry about as well. So, yes, very exciting this winter.
My old mate Chris Hobson was doing media round the other day, and I knew him. He used to do press and media relations for Granada Television, and of course he was a big cheese at NHS providers, and is now, I think, head of strategy at the NHS. And intriguingly, he said the answer to where we are right now, which you just spoke so elegantly and articulately about, is not shed loads more money. It is this personnel planning document. It's about recruiting more people to sit alongside you and work with you. It's about recruiting and training more nurses, more doctors across the piece. That will solve most of the immediate problems that the NHS faces. Do you agree with that?
Well, yes, without seeing the exact thing, I can't agree with everything. But yes, I think the more GPs and nurses we have on the front line means the more time we can spend with patients to help prevent illness, to help people not get cancer, to not get heart disease, and to watch out for dangerous signs. And that's the problem. We're firefighting the whole time rather than actually thinking about a proper service that provides a great service for NHS, for GB UK Limited. We need a good health service so that our commercial organisations, our big companies, can compete in the world without having a huge population of sick people waiting to have their hips done or their knees done. The better the health service we have, the more economically advantageous the UK will be on the world market. And goodness, we need that now.
David, great to talk to you again, and thank you very much for breaking in to your weekend to do that. And let me just underline one thing. David won't mind my doing it in a whole series of brilliant answers. But that key thing he said, you can go online and you can find all sorts of alternatives to trying to phone up and try and book an appointment for a hard-pressed GP surgery. There's lots of good advice there. And we now know as well that you can pop into your pharmacy and they are very, very good men and women too, and they will be able to give you primary care advice and guidance and may even be able to give you a prescription. But as David said, only in extremis pick up that phone and call the GP. David, thank you very much indeed. I hope you have a great rest of the weekend. That's Dr. David Lloyd, an NHS GP, bringing us right up to date with what it's like at the front line and some very sound advice for all of us to get through a chilly and not terribly pleasant winter. You are watching and listening to Alastair Stewart and Friends, with lots more coming up on today's programme. England, of course, as you may just have heard, gearing up for their quarter-final match against France this evening. Can England bring it home? We will be catching up with Jason Cundy next. But first, let's take a look at what we've just been talking about, the all-important weather.
Looking ahead to this afternoon, and the UK is looking cold but dry for most, although wintry showers continuing at some coastal areas. Let's take a look at the details. Staying dry with plenty of sunny spells for much of Scotland today, but some snow showers continuing for central and eastern areas. Feeling very cold with moderate northeasterly winds. Showers persist across to eastern Northern Ireland this afternoon with sleet or snow in places. Some brighter spells at times, but feeling very cold. A cold, cloudy afternoon for northwestern England with a risk of some wintry showers, particularly over high ground. Drier with brighter spells further east. Cloudy in the far northwest of Wales with showers, which may be wintry in places, particularly over high ground, throughout Saturday. Drier further east with brighter spells at times, but feeling very cold. Generally dry across the East Midlands with plenty of sunny spells, although some mist and fog may linger through the afternoon, feeling very cold, with some spots staying close to freezing all day. Staying mostly dry across East Anglia, although the odd light shower may skirt far eastern coast. Sunny spells further west, although feeling cold, with many places staying close to freezing. A mostly dry afternoon in the south of England with plenty of sunshine, although a few light showers at far southern coasts. It's remaining very cold into Saturday evening with wintry showers at the coasts and a frost developing for many. And that is how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Good afternoon. It's 12:34. I'm Tamsin Roberts in the GB newsroom. Police in Jersey have confirmed one person has died following a large explosion in St Helier. The blast happened at a block of flats in the early hours of the morning. A search and rescue effort is underway with around a dozen people said to be missing. Jersey Police Chief Officer Robin Smith told the news conference the fire service had been called to the area the previous night after residents reported the smell of gas. He warned the number of people killed could still climb.
We have a three-storey building that has completely collapsed. Described as, from a demolition point of view, probably as a pancake that has just dropped almost sort of straight down. It is considerable destruction. And there are also damage to a nearby building as well, another set block of flats, which we need to sort of make safe, for fire service need to make safe. So it is a pretty devastating scene, I regret to say.
RMT General Secretary Mick Lynch has called for an urgent meeting with the Prime Minister. It's to try to resolve a long-running dispute over pay and conditions for rail workers. Union members are due to stage 2 48-hour strikes next week, following months of industrial action over the deadlocked row. A runway at Manchester Airport has reopened after heavy snow forced its closure, affecting dozens of flights. Severe cold weather warnings are in place across Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales, the southwest and southeast of England this weekend, with temperatures dropping as low as -10 degrees in some isolated areas. Millions of people are expected to watch England take on defending World Cup champions France in tonight's quarter-final in Qatar. Manager Gareth Southgate says they're better prepared for success than 4 years ago, but that this will be the team's toughest test so far at the tournament. TV, online and DAB plus radio, this is GB News. Now it's back to Alastair Stewart and friends.
Tamsin, thank you very much indeed. It says here, it's the match that England fans have been looking forward to all week. A quarter-final fixture with the reigning World Cup champions. The only bit I wonder about that is whether actually that's the side that they really wanted to face. I know everybody wanted them to be at this level and stage in the championship, and of course every single one of us wishes them all of the luck in the world as they face the reigning world champions tonight, with favourites such as Brazil making curious and early exits. Can the Three Lions roar past Les Bleus? Wonderful. I like the Sun newspaper this morning with a picture of Le Croque Monsieur and make the French toast. It's a gift to headline writers. But obviously it has been much talked about and much reported upon. And therefore I'm delighted to offer some fresh thoughts here, because I'm joined live in the studio by former professional footballer Jason Cundy, who played for England for under-21s.
I did. Good afternoon, Alastair.
Great to see you, and thanks for sharing time with us. The thing that's really struck me, and I'm very taken by it, is listening to so many of the players and what I'd call the really intelligent commentariat out there, rather than just the back of the net mob, as it were, is the importance of the camaraderie that this squad has got now that it's back to complete, having seen one have to go home for private reasons.
Yes,
they all say that interaction amongst themselves, buddies, is crucial.
Do you know what, Alistair? This has been building up for 4 years. We saw that in the last World Cup when we got to the semi-finals, and the Euros last year when we got to the final of that. So it's not by coincidence. This is a squad of players that Gareth has carefully put together, moulded into a squad. As you mentioned there's a camaraderie amongst them all. They've all got their own backs. They seem to be very relaxed in one another's company. This is not just a squad that's been thrown together. This has been carefully nurtured over the last 4 or 5 years. And I think Gareth deserves a huge amount of credit for that as well.
Yeah, absolutely, which, again, people are saying the dark days of looking down upon him a bit would appear to have evaporated.
That's right.
And that does matter. My other favourite quote, and he's certainly not a back-of-the-net man in terms of his language, he's a back-of-the-net man in terms of what he used to do, is Alan Shearer.
Right.
He said, we need to be really careful as fans and players and supporters and even coaches and staff, and that is to talk up how amazing some of the French players are, because Shearer said, and it's in my head, he said, just look at that lineup of strikers that we've got and how well they've done so far, because Mbappe may be the highest single scorer in the competition so far. We are the highest scoring team in the competition so far.
Yeah, and I think there's a mutual respect between both camps, right? They know what we've got. We're scoring goals. 8 players have scored for our squad, only 3 of theirs. But they do have arguably the best player in the world right now. It's only right we talk about him because he's a superstar. You know, he scored 16 goals in his last 14 games for France. That gives you some idea of what we're up against. But you're absolutely right. We need to be careful and mindful of what he's got. But let me tell you, they'll be worried about what we've got. Saka looks fabulous. We've got players off the bench such as Rashford and Harry Kane has yet to really get his World Cup start. I know he scored last time out. But we've got goals all over us, you know, that we have. But we're also very mindful of what they've got, because they've got some... And also Giroud, they've got the highest French goal scorer ever.
Yes.
Griezmann's playing well right now, and Dembele paced one side. Look, this is going to be a really evenly matched game, but both sets of players will be very aware of what the other one's got.
In terms of European competition, either at club level or national level, has our defence faced this lineup of strikers in France?
Well, Walker has played against Mbappe when he was at Man City in the Champions League last season. And for 80 minutes, he kept Mbappe very quiet. He went off injured, and Mbappe went to go and score the winner, which they won 2-1. So they know one another very, very well. There's vastly experienced players in both sets of camps there. I think the matchup I'm looking forward to is the Giroud with Maguire one, because Giroud's a big physical boy, good in the air. I think they'll kind of both enjoy that battle. It seems quite even. Dembele on the other side against Shaw, potentially. Dembele's a quick boy, gets the ball out, he's got a lovely technique, great left foot. And I mentioned that Griezmann is playing number 10. So, but then I go up the other end. Jude Bellingham has been absolutely magnificent.
Yes.
He's been a real... It could go on to be player of the tournament if we get as far as I hope we do in the finals. He's only 19 as well.
My eldest son, who writes about football, used to be with Tifo and now does it for Strategy lineup. He was saying Jude is his absolute pin-up. He says he's got captain written all over him.
Do you know what? He has got a maturity beyond his years.
Yeah.
He's only 19. He plays like he's been playing the game for the last 10, 15 years. Henderson's a big, big player in there for us as well. That balance between Henderson, Rice and Bellingham. I think Henderson will perhaps sit a little deeper than he has done in this tournament before. Only because of what the threat they've got, and Griezmann playing as number 10. I think Bellingham would be just given a free licence. Go and support Kane, go and support Saka, go and support Foden.
God willing, will we win or will they lose? You know what I mean by that.
Do you know what, Alastair? This is such a tough one to call. I think there'll be very little in it. I think one goal, it would not surprise me if we're hiding behind the sofa after 2 hours of football and seeing penalties. It would not surprise me one little bit.
There's been a fair old bit of that about, hasn't there?
Oh, dear. Yeah, listen, we've been there before. We know what it's like. Look, these lads can win in 90 minutes.
I'm negotiating live on air now because I've got to work out a way with my lovely producing team of writing the scripts for tomorrow's programme while the game is on.
Right.
And I know exactly what I will want to be doing and hopefully making some sense of all of it. Jason Cundy, a real pleasure to see you.
Tonight,
I knew it would be great, and thanks for your clever, thoughtful, reflectful and experienced thoughts there. Hope you enjoy.
Fingers crossed.
Hope it's a nice big sofa that you nestle down behind.
Come on.
Have a great evening.
You take care.
Fingers crossed. Thanks, Jason. Jason Cundy there, former professional footballer and England under-19. You're watching and listening to Alastair Stewart and old friends and now new friends, I'm delighted to say, with plenty more still to come this afternoon, including the cost of living crisis, and the energy crisis means that Christmas won't necessarily be the same this year. But how should you talk to your children about that? I'll be discussing that with a child psychologist, but first, we'll take a quick break. We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
There's a guy who went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome back. It's 1:45. You're watching and listening to Alastair Stewart and Friends here on GB News, TV and radio and online. Now, I asked you last night and first thing this morning to get in touch on our big topic of the day. Is the country ready for the winter that lies ahead? And is it going to be a tricky Christmas? Well, Gary gets the conversation going, saying the current situation in this country this winter is either due to the total incompetence of the politicians or it has been deliberately engineered by the so-called leaders. Either way, it is not good. Beverly says, regarding the NHS, it needs more reorganisation, not more money thrown at it. Well, interesting, I think we agreed with Chris Hobson and with my lovely GP friend that what it needs most of all is more people rather than just reorganisation and more money. And even they themselves say that. There needs to be more matrons and fewer managers. If striking has to be the government wake-up call, then so be it. There you go. Jean joins the conversation saying, I'm just getting my head down and carrying on as normal. It is the British way. Shortages of what? Everything I want and everything I need seems there. Just work round it. Brilliant philosophy, Jean. Well done, you. And do keep your views coming in and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are at GB News, and you can catch up on previous interviews that I've done and indeed previous programmes that we have done. So keep those thoughts coming in on GB Views at gbnews.uk or tweet me direct or indeed tweet at GB News. Now, many of us look forward to watching Christmas adverts from our favourite brands, but this year, an alternative ad has gone viral. It follows a bereaved dad struggling with the cost of living crisis and raises the question of how we should set our children's expectations this year. I'm being joined next by child psychologist and founder of the Good Play Guide, Amanda Gummer, and she joins the conversation now. Amanda, good to see you. Thanks for breaking into your Saturday to be with us. I thought a lot about this because we've recently been blessed with our first ever grandson, little fella, and we have 4 children, 2 of whom are still relatively young, and all of them think about Christmas in traditional terms. If it's going to be brutally tough, isn't it a golden opportunity to speak truth unto truth?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the most important thing is captured by that advert. It made me cry, I have to say. It's just beautifully portrayed and captures the message of Christmas. And we do need to move away from that sort of how many presents and what's the value and how much we spent on things. And I think when parents are asking me about this, I think the best tip I give them is to have the conversation early. What you want to do is manage expectations so that you can enjoy the day. And what you don't want to do is sort of overpromise because you're trying to keep their spirits up, and then on the day you just get the disappointed faces. So I think if things are tough, it is important to be honest. And it is, a good time to have conversations with kids about the value of money and not being able to always get everything they need.
Yeah, I mean, it strikes us as parents, but also reflecting back on that John Lewis advert, is that it is a golden opportunity to inch young people away from materialism. Oh, I want it, I can have it, I want it now, the here-now society, and just inch them a little closer to kindness. The greatest gift of all is compassion, just being nice to one another.
Yeah, 100%. And that is exactly the message at Christmas. Just to correct you there, it wasn't the John Lewis advert that's gone viral. It's one that's been made by somebody who's nothing to do with John Lewis. It's just got that sort of heart pulling at the heartstrings messages that you often associate with the John Lewis adverts. But it's an independent production. But yes, absolutely, the message is still very much, let's focus on what's really important. And it's about, helping families stay together and be together and make memories and create those, magical moments where they're just enjoying each other's company and finding that sort of generosity of spirit and doing nice things for people who are less fortunate than them. And, all of that sort of traditional Christmas messaging, I think now is the year for it to really come to the fore.
Great wisdom, Amanda. Let me add one other thing I'd love to hear your professional comment upon, and that is weaning them off the competitive element. Billy down the road's got such and such a Scalextrics with Max Verstappen racing Lewis Hamilton. I've only got an old one with Sterling Moss or somebody. And everybody in my class at school's got a brand new pad, and I want one now. Any tips for hard-pressed parents who just want to try and explain to their kids that it isn't a competitive thing?
Absolutely. And I think one of the key things there is to lead by example. Children learn most from the people that they're most closely attached to, and that's usually the parents. So, making sure you're not comparing what you've got with what your friends or your neighbours have got, I think is an important thing. But also explaining that there are things that are different. And this goes much more broadly into a sort of an inclusion and diversity conversation around individual differences and how everybody has different ways of doing things. And in your family, this is how we do it. That's the kind of, we do this and this is great. And you love it when we do, I don't know, bake cookies together or, go for a midnight walk and look at the sparkly lights, whatever it is. And maybe different people have different ways of doing things. And some people have more money to spend and other people have more time to spend and other people, there's just being able to have that conversation around it's okay to be different. I think, again, really important to have that at Christmas. But it's a much wider thing than just about competitive presence.
I said in my brief introduction to our conversation, amongst many other things, you are famous for producing the brilliant, standout Good Play Guide. Do you agree with my late mother, who believed firmly that you were never too young to play charades and other Christmas games?
Never too old either, absolutely. Yeah, no, I think Christmas games are one of those really great ways of bringing families together and the multiple generations that can play together. Things like charades or sort of games of hide and seek or whatever your Christmas tradition is. I think family Christmas games is brilliant. And there are lots on the Good Play Guide, so go and have a look.
She was also a firm believer in families singing carols together, as long as you got the casting of Good King Wenceslas right, so that the person who had to say it was in the very sod wasn't playing silly games on the piano or anything of that nature. So get out there, enjoy it, and be nice to one another. And if you are a mum or a dad or a guardian listening to this conversation, get hold of a copy of Amanda's Good Play Guide. It is absolute standout, full of wisdom, some of which she has shared with us this morning. I hope you and yours have a terrific Christmas, whatever you're doing, but thank you very much indeed, as I say, for that wisdom and those good tips on how to make sure the little ones still have as enjoyable a Christmas as is possible, but without necessarily turning it into a materialistic fest. You are watching and listening to Alastair Stewart and Friends here on GB News TV and Radio, with plenty more still coming up in our second hour this afternoon. We will continue that conversation on whether the United Kingdom is really prepared for the difficult winter that we know lies ahead, and we will be looking at the strikes in a little more detail that are planned right across the country in the coming weeks, many of them already underway, of course. But first, let's bring you up to date with the all-important weather.
Looking ahead to this afternoon, and the UK is looking cold but dry for most, although wintry showers continuing at some coastal areas. Let's take a look at the details. Staying dry with plenty of sunny spells for much of Scotland today, but some snow showers continuing for central and eastern areas, feeling very cold with moderate northeasterly winds. Showers persist across to eastern Northern Ireland this afternoon with sleet or snow in places, some brighter spells at times, but feeling very cold. A cold, cloudy afternoon for northwestern England with a risk of some wintry showers, particularly over high ground. Drier with brighter spells further east. Cloudy in the far northwest of Wales with showers, which may be wintry in places, particularly over high ground, throughout Saturday. Drier further east with brighter spells at times, but feeling very cold. Generally dry across the East Midlands with plenty of sunny spells, although some mist and fog may linger through the afternoon, feeling very cold, with some spots staying close to freezing all day. Staying mostly dry across East Anglia, although the odd light shower may skirt far eastern coasts. Sunny spells further west, although feeling cold, with many places staying close to freezing. A mostly dry afternoon in the south of England with plenty of sunshine, although a few light showers at far southern coasts. It's remaining very cold into Saturday evening with wintry showers at the coasts and a frost developing for many. And that is how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store? You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hello and welcome if you've just joined us at 13:40, and hello again, and thank you very much indeed if you've been with us since 12 o'clock. I'll be keeping you company here on TV and radio with plenty more still to come, including more on our top discussion, just how prepared are we all for this winter, especially in relation to the strikes that are already unfolding and the others that are in the pipeline. Plus, we'll be speaking to superfans ahead of England's quarter-final contest with France this evening. But first, let's bring you right up to date with all of the day's news. Here, once again, is Tamsin.
Alastair, thank you. Good afternoon from the GB newsroom. It's 1 minute past 1. Police in Jersey have confirmed a person has died after a large explosion in St Helier. The blast happened at a block of flats in the early hours of this morning. A search and rescue effort is underway, with around a dozen people said to be missing. Jersey Police Chief Officer Robin Smith told a news conference the fire service had been called to the area the previous night after residents reported the smell of gas. He warned the number of people killed could still climb.
We have a 3-storey building that has completely collapsed. Described as, from a demolition point of view, probably as a pancake that has just dropped almost sort of straight down. It is considerable destruction. And there are also damage to a nearby building as well, another set block of flats, which we need to sort of make safe, for fire service need to make safe. So it is a pretty devastating scene, I regret to say.
Manchester Airport has now reopened one of 2 runways which were closed after heavy snow affecting dozens of flights. Severe cold weather is causing travel problems across the country, with yellow warnings in place across Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales, the southwest and southeast of England this weekend. Temperatures are expected to drop as low as -10 degrees in some isolated areas. RMT General Secretary Mick Lynch has called for an urgent meeting with the Prime Minister. It's to try to resolve a long-running dispute over pay and conditions for rail workers. Union members are due to stage 2 48-hour strikes next week, following months of industrial action over the deadlocked row. Millions of people are expected to watch England take on defending World Cup champions France in tonight's quarter-final in Qatar. Manager Gareth Southgate says they're better prepared for success than 4 years ago, but this will be the team's toughest test so far at the tournament. At home, supporters dare to dream. In south-east London at the Kirby Estate in Bermondsey, residents are cautiously optimistic.
I think we're going to win. I think, as I said before, I was talking to these, that we're going to win 2-0. I'm very confident.
After yesterday, I don't know what to think anymore. Some of the games yesterday were absolutely incredible. I mean, to be a neutral watching them is amazing, but to actually be a supporter, I mean, if we got a game like that tonight, I'm going to be all over the place. But if we can do what we've been doing, yeah, I reckon we've got a chance.
Well, the French are just as excited about the clash. In Paris, journalist Sahar Menai says they're ready for the showdown.
It's a quarter-final against England. It's a crunch in football on a Saturday night at 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock French time. So I think everybody tonight in France is going to be watching. It's such a special game, an old rivalry, an old fight between two brothers. So I think everybody is really passionate now here about this game.
To Dover now, and around 200 migrants have been intercepted crossing the Channel this morning. One group managed to land on a beach at Samphire Hoe, near Dover. They've now been taken to the Manston Processing Centre. Calmer conditions are reportedly making the journey easier today. Over 44,000 people have crossed the Channel so far this year. A domestic abuse charity has paused operations over safety fears after the royal race row. It comes after Ngozi Fulani spoke about her treatment by Prince William's godmother, Lady Susan Hussey, who repeatedly asked her where she really came from during a reception at Buckingham Palace. The Sister Space charity founder says she and her team received horrific abuse on social media. The charity says it will reinstate its services as soon as it's safe to do so. NASA's Orion spacecraft is making its way back to Earth after a 25-day trip around the Moon. The uncrewed capsule, which is designed to carry astronauts, has travelled more than 1.4 million miles. It's expected to land in the Pacific Ocean tomorrow afternoon. If the splashdown is successful, humans will board the craft for the next lunar mission in 2024. The King says the reassuring presence of ancient trees and woodlands is a fitting tribute to his late mother. The monarch's words are part of a foreword for a new book called The Queen's Green Canopy. It features photos of 70 age-old trees and 70 historic woodlands, which were dedicated to Queen Elizabeth to mark her Platinum Jubilee. The book will be published in June, but its images are currently on display at a public exhibition in London. This is GB News. We'll bring you more news as it happens, of course. Now, though, it's back to Alastair.
Tamsin, thank you very much indeed. Today's newspapers have been so awash with news of strikes, it's like looking at a vat of papier-mâché rather than reading Fleet Street's finest, with news of current strikes and other strikes in the pipeline. The Times newspaper reports on its front page of misery on the railways. The Daily Mail warns readers not to fall ill or to rely on trains and forget to send Christmas cards, they say, as strikes will hold Britain hostage. Well, let's have a little look further at part of that gloomy backdrop to Christmas just round the corner, the current wave of industrial action. In a moment, I'll be talking to one of the finest industrial correspondents around, the guy who covers all of these things for the Press Association, which is one of those sources that we rely on for accurate reporting of stuff that we can't get people out and about on. And also intriguing, I'm really looking forward to this one, former boss of ACAS, the Arbitration Conciliation Service, which exists purely to try and sort out strikes and industrial action. As promised, I'm delighted to be joined once again live in the studio with me now by GB News political reporter Olivia Utley. So who did you phone and who's been phoning you over the break?
Well, it seems as though the government is now just trying to... It looks as though negotiations aren't going to pay off any time, particularly soon. So the government is concerned with just keeping our infrastructure, public services, running in some capacity in the next month. Oliver Dowden is in charge of this unit, the unit to keep things up and running, basically, while the strikes are happening. MPs are quite confident about Oliver Dowden. He's known to be a sort of very good operator, and he was Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster before. He knows how to run
former chairman of the party,
former chairman of the party
knows everybody,
as well.
Guy.
Knows everybody, knows how to actually make things work. Close friend of Rishi Sunak, so they're working very closely together. The main problem now is that the army is pretty pissed off if... God, am I allowed to say that?
I think I should have gone beep.
So sorry. The army isn't happy because they feel there are plenty of young soldiers who feel as though they are now going to be missing Christmas as a result of having to stand in for Border Force officers, for example. And many of them earn less than what those Border Force officers would be earning. So a private, for example, is on £22,000, much less than many of these strikers. So that is the big pressing concern for the government at the moment. Can they just get through the next month and a bit? And will their sort of plan B be able to hold things up?
Did you see my conversation with Steve McCabe?
I did, yes.
I thought absolutely fascinating. I've known him for years. Good bloke, feet on the ground kind of guy. And I thought that issue of how difficult it would be for Labour to vote against minimum service requirements in areas such as the NHS and indeed even the railways. I mean, see you in the lobby, sunshine, blink, blink.
Exactly. It is very difficult, and particularly when, going back to the army is legally bound not to strike. So you sort of makes the public wonder why there are public services where it is extremely easy to strike and somewhere you sort of can't strike at all. But Labour is obviously on a very sticky wicket. We talked about this last time, but Keir Starmer wants to be a sort of Blairite Labour businessman. He wants people to trust him, corporates to trust him, but then he also has to keep the unions on side because of the way that the Labour Party is funded and structured.
We both recommend that you read the Times Leader today if you have got time. And also, we both collectively apologise for the use of very military language a little earlier on in describing how the military felt about it. A slip of the tongue, a figure of speech, and I'm sure, but one or two people have just said I didn't expect to hear that. So from both Olivia and from me, a genuine sorry. These things occasionally happen. Don't do it again.
Sorry.
Olivia Utley there. As I've said several times, I'm really looking forward to this next conversation because John Taylor is a former chief executive of the Arbitration Conciliation Service, and he joins me live now. Why can't you guys just bang a few heads together? Or your successors, I should say.
That's not the approach that ACAS have ever used, actually. What they've done is quite calmly got the parties together and got them to bang their heads together, really. It's a very difficult situation where if you get into a dispute, essentially people have been driven along by their emotions. And what you need to do is get them to come back from those emotions and try and think about what the issues are.
But as it were, you can't take direct actions yourself. One of the parties has to refer themselves to your experts to sit you round a table and try and sort it out there and then.
Well, in essence, Alastair, both parties need to come because ACAS, and this is the strength of ACAS, doesn't have any statutory powers. It was actually the creation of the CBI and the TUC back in the 70s when there was massive concern about direct government intervention in the workplace. And what that means is when the parties come to ACAS, they really are looking for some kind of settlement. If we summon them to ACAS, it'll be quite difficult for them not to turn up. But if they're not prepared to compromise and look slightly longer term, it wouldn't work.
Except, not being cynical, it could be good politics. If you were the Royal College of Nurses, when Steve Barclay says, my door is always open and I want to have genuinely constructive conversations, if I was the RCN, I'd turn up. I'd call his bluff and say, see you at ACAS.
Yeah, well, I'm sure behind the scene, contacts have been made. I mean, in my day, and remember, I'm talking 10 years ago when the situation was relatively benign and strike-free. What you never did was negotiate in public. And of course now, with the power of social media, that can quickly undermine the position of either of the parties if they want to try and compromise. And what you need to do is avoid that amount of external pressure, and you've got to get them to concentrate on what they can control.
And in your years of experience, would you agree with me, and I was an industrial correspondent throughout the 70s and the 80s, that disputes that involve terms and conditions of employment, job security, are much more intractable than a straightforward, here's my pay claim on the table?
Absolutely. And I think what's even worse is if you then conflate all of those issues into the dispute. I mean, if you think about it, what has happened over the last 20, 30 years in all workplaces is that technology has quietly changed the way in which people operate. And what happened with COVID, that sort of crystallized everything. And suddenly, hybrid working, or people working at home, not working in the workplace, became accepted across many other industrial sectors. And that means also that customers change their behaviour. So what the parties have got to do is think long term and actually think about what their customers actually want from them. And that's one of the ways that one of the ways ACAS tries to help is to try and get the parties to concentrate on what they agree on. Because at the end of the day, a workforce and an employer have a mutual interest, and that's called the success of the enterprise. Because if it goes bust, everybody loses.
John, great to see you again. Thank you very much for sharing so much of your time with us this weekend. That was an enlightening pleasure for me, and I hope very much for the people good enough to be either watching or listening to our conversation on GB News TV and radio. John Taylor, former Arbitration Advisory Conciliation Service Chief Executive, ACAS, as we used to call it in the day. Now, Royal Mail workers are also striking. Thousands of workers rallied near Parliament yesterday in the increasingly bitter dispute over jobs, pay and conditions, exactly what John and I were just talking about there. It isn't simply a wage claim against the rocketing cost of living that all of us face. It is about serious concerns as well over job security and pay and conditions, or conditions rather, relating to that work. And I'm delighted, therefore, to be joined for the first time on this programme, but my pleasure, the Assistant Secretary of the Communication Workers Union. That's Andy Fury, who is there, you can see on the right hand of your screen. Andy, you're an experienced negotiator, trade union leader. Would it be easier, as John was just suggesting, if it was just about cost of living, if it was just a good old-fashioned pay claim, we need more to meet our bills, but because it involves terms and conditions and job security, it gets intractable?
Well, I think that's a very good description of the dispute the CW's got with Royal Mail. We're often asked, is this about pay? And it's much, much more than pay. It did start off about pay in the summer. And to be clear, I know your caption says a winter of discontent, but for the Communication Workers Union, our members have now taken 13 days of action since the end of August. So this is much more than, I don't like that expression, winter of discontent. But the reality is our members are in this for the long haul because it is such a complex dispute. And indeed, in terms of ACAS, I've spent a couple of days at ACAS earlier this week with the Chief Conciliator, and as John describes, their role is very, very helpful. They do try and facilitate a way forward, but they can't impose their will. They have to remain impartial and independent, and we welcome their involvement where we can involve them.
Yeah. The newspapers, and I've mentioned the Times several times, I haven't got shares in them, or I'm not beholding to the editor or anybody else like that, but they've done some serious work on a lot of these disputes. And one of the points they make this morning is that the private sector is having a field day at your expense at the moment because Parcel Force has been given an absolute thumping by all of the private delivery firms, and people are now setting up saying, we will deliver letters. If you want to make sure that you get your Christmas cards delivered, we will do it for you. You could be swept away by private market forces.
Well, look, we understand that the dispute can be damaging. Our members have got their eyes wide open. They voted twice by nearly 98%, on nearly an 80% turnout on each occasion to vote for strike action. Yesterday we had nearly 20,000 people that were on strike in Parliament Square. That was the police official figures. Our members are extremely angry about the way they're being treated by the company. We are trying to find a way through this, but unfortunately we came to a pause in the negotiations on Thursday. No other talks are planned. But we do need to put this into context, Alastair. The company, Royal Mail, made £758 million profit last year. They declared that in May, and they paid out in this calendar year alone £567 million to shareholders. So, look, this is a very successful company, and our members have delivered magnificently for years and years, not least of all during the COVID times when they were hailed as key workers and connected this country 6 days a week by delivering to 32 million addresses. It is a difficult dispute, but we're willing to get into negotiations tomorrow, Monday, Tuesday. We want to find a way through this, but it does require compromise on the behalf of Royal Mail.
The arguments about profits being made have been used by Mick at the RMT and Aslef and others. Exactly the same articulation as you. You know, they're making lots of money. They've got it in the bunker. They need to share it a little bit. Is there an element of coordination in this wave of industrial action? Because I did a promotional thing for GBNews the other day saying it looks to me, as a former industrial correspondent, as a little bit of a mini general strike. I know it's not fully there and it's not TUC, but it has that air about it. Is it coordinated?
No, it's not coordinated, but it's convergent. So many sectors are facing an onslaught of attacks on pay, terms and conditions. And it's only right and just that working class people can stand up for themselves. And they're doing that democratically, they're doing it legally, they're delivering through the ballot box. We now have high thresholds to pass in ballots we didn't used to have. We have to give 2 weeks notice of strike action. Everything is a postal ballot. So look, the reality is all the mechanisms are in place for negotiations to take place. and for a breakthrough to happen, it does take two to tango, and the CW is prepared to compromise. We've made our position clear on matters where we're willing to work with the company, but there are issues that are completely unacceptable, and that one of them is compulsory redundancies. We cannot tolerate in an iconic industry such as Royal Mail with 120,000 workers, CW members.
Sure. Andy, thank you very much indeed for fitting us in on what I know is a very busy weekend for you. Good to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Andy Fury there, who is the Assistant Secretary at the Communication Workers Union, who don't just do posties, they do a whole raft of people right across the communications industries, private and public. Thanks for his honesty and indeed for his time. As advertised now, one of my pin-ups, Alan Jones, the industrial correspondent at PA Media. And as I said, they are a news source to the rest of us who try and write stuff up and make it sound as compelling as possible, and he makes sure that it's all straight, proper, balanced and accurate reporting. Do you think there's an element of coordination to this, or as Andy just said, it's virtually coincidental that well-run unions are just facing the same problems at the same time?
Yeah, I think he's right. They haven't been coordinated. The only coordination is week after next, three of the big NHS unions, Unison, Unite, and the GMB are going to coordinate strikes in the ambulance service. But up to now, no, the strikes are not being coordinated. There are so many strikes going on now, it's almost coordination by default. But I do know that there are some serious discussions going on between the union leaders, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if these disputes continue, that we will have some quite serious coordinating of strikes going off in the new year. So can you imagine? We'll probably get near to almost 1 million workers involved in disputes. You know, so if you can imagine 1 million workers going on strike on the same day in the new year, I think that would be the biggest outbreak of industrial action since the infamous 1978-1979 period, with the phrase I also don't use either, because it's so different. You know, employment relations are so different now. And as you know, Alastair, there were millions of people on strike in 1978, 1979, and you could have a meeting in a car park, raise your hands and walk out. You know, now you have to be balloted, there's thresholds to be reached, you have to give notice. So the fact that so many people are on strike, I think, just shows the level of anger.
Do you think there's a case for a more proactive ACAS with a capacity to bang a few heads together when Barclay says my door's always open to the nurses, to insist that he and the nurses turn up for talks, and instead of having Mick Lynch on the media airwaves saying, I want to meet Rishi, invite the two of them in? We've lost that link now, so I'll just say my huge thanks, as always, to Alan. Welcome on the programme anytime. Thank you very much indeed. You're watching and listening to Alastair Stewart and Friends, with lots more still to come in the remaining 30 or 40 minutes or so of the programme. England, of course, gearing up for their quarter-final match against France this evening. Can England bring it home? We'll be crossing live to Qatar for an update from the ground, and with some of the absolutely dedicated fans who are still out there hoping for the very best. It's a bit warm out there, but let's bring you right up to date with the weather right here.
Looking ahead to this afternoon, and the UK is looking cold but dry for most, although wintry showers continuing at some coastal areas. Let's take a look at the details. Staying dry with plenty of sunny spells for much of Scotland today, but some snow showers continuing for central and eastern areas. Feeling very cold with moderate northeasterly winds. Showers persist across eastern Northern Ireland this afternoon with sleet or snow in places. Some brighter spells at times, but feeling very cold. A cold, cloudy afternoon for northwestern England with a risk of some wintry showers, particularly over high ground. Drier with brighter spells further east. Cloudy in the far northwest of Wales with showers, which may be wintry in places, particularly over high ground, throughout Saturday. Drier further east with brighter spells at times, but feeling very cold. Generally dry across the East Midlands with plenty of sunny spells, although some mist and fog may linger through the afternoon, feeling very cold, with some spots staying close to freezing all day. Staying mostly dry across East Anglia, although the odd light shower may skirt far eastern coast. Sunny spells further west, although feeling cold with many places staying close to freezing. A mostly dry afternoon in the south of England with plenty of sunshine, although a few light showers at far southern coasts. It's remaining very cold into Saturday evening with wintry showers at the coasts and a frost developing for many. And that is how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by 2 of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Hello, good afternoon. I'm Tamsin Roberts in the GB newsroom. It's 1:30. Police in Jersey have confirmed one person has died following a large explosion in St Helier. The blast happened at a block of flats in the early hours of this morning. A search and rescue effort is underway with around a dozen people said to be missing. Jersey Police Chief Officer Robin Smith told a news conference the fire service had been called to the area the previous night after residents reported the smell of gas. He warned the number of people killed could still climb.
We have a 3-storey building that has completely collapsed. Described as, from a demolition point of view, probably as a pancake that has just dropped almost sort of straight down. It is considerable destruction. And there are also damage to a nearby building as well, another set block of flats, which we need to sort of make safe, for fire service need to make safe. So it is a pretty devastating scene, I regret to say.
Manchester Airport has now reopened one of 2 runways which were closed after heavy snow affecting dozens of flights. Severe cold weather is causing travel problems across the country, with yellow warnings in place across Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales, the southwest and southeast of England this weekend. Temperatures are expected to drop to as low as -10 degrees in some isolated areas. RMT General Secretary Mick Lynch has called for an urgent meeting with the Prime Minister. It's to try to resolve a long-running dispute over paying conditions for rail workers. Union members are due to stage 2 48-hour strikes next week, following months of industrial action over the deadlocked row. Millions of people are expected to watch England take on defending World Cup champions France in tonight's quarter-final in Qatar. Manager Gareth Southgate says they're better prepared for success than 4 years ago, but this will be the team's toughest test so far at the tournament. TV, online and DAB Plus radio, this is GB News. Now it's over to Alastair Stewart and friends.
Tamsin, thank you very much indeed. It is very nearly crunch time for England in their quarter-final match against France in the World Cup tonight. As Tamsin was just suggesting, around 22 million people are expected to tune in tonight to see the Lions play against the reigning champion Les Bleus. But can the team make it through to the next round? Well, the skipper, Harry Kane, says that the team are confident. But is football finally coming home, as they say? Well, from the snowy reaches of Manchester, we can go to the blazing warmth and heat of Qatar and Doha and join our reporter, Paul Hawkins, who, as you can see there on the right-hand side of your screen, is live for us, reporting on the build-up to Le Grand Punch-Up. Well, let's hope it's not that anyway. You've been in Doha for quite some time and built up some fantastic relationships with some of the fans who've scraped together a not inconsiderable amount of money to get out there and enjoy it. Are they kind of saying, yeah, we knew it was going to be this good, or has it come as a bit of a delirious and delightful shock?
I'd say a delirious and delightful shock, Alice. About 3,000 England fans have travelled out for this game, but some of them have been here since the very beginning. They've all really enjoyed it. Everyone we've spoken to has said it's been fantastic. When they've wanted to have a drink, they've done it in the designated areas. They've paid a little bit of a premium for it. And even when they haven't wanted to have a drink, they've had a great time, maybe here in Musharraf, downtown Musharraf in Doha, or in the souk, which is just behind us over there. And just to correct you on the weather, I'd like to say it was blazing hot sunshine. Today's the first day I'm wearing a woolen jumper, and I know that for everyone in the UK, they're going to be throwing things at the TV saying, hang on, it's -5, -6, but by Doha standards, it's actually quite cold today. It's 19, 20 degrees, and actually there was a little bit of rain this morning, and it's overcast, so not the blazing hot sunshine. Perfect conditions for both Morocco and Portugal, who are playing in round about 25 minutes' time, and then England and France later, maybe even about 17 or 18 degrees for that match, more like English-French conditions. So is it going to be Allez le Bleu, or is it going to be Allez le Blanc? We've been at the England versus France fans match this morning, mingling with the fans who had a kickabout amongst themselves. Proper 7-a-side game it was. England coming out on top 7-4, so hopefully that's a good omen for later. But we did also catch up with some of the England fans when they were subs, on the subs bench as it were. Here's one of them. How are you feeling about the game tonight?
Pretty confident, to be fair. I mean, I've been here since the start of the World Cup, and I don't think any other team has been better than England so far. Even France lost to Tunisia. They had the second team out, but at least, you know, depth in squad, you've got to be able to show that throughout the World Cup, you know. Any injuries or anything like that, you know, they do have quality players, but I think at this moment in time, you go on form, I think England just look that a bit better, to be honest. I back us to win 2-1, to be fair.
Right.
Yeah, I back 90 minutes. I don't think it'll go extra time. I don't think it'll go pens. And I'm just confident. I've been confident since the start of the World Cup. And we just, every other game, especially after the Holland-Argentina game last night, we look even better now, I think. And, you know, Argentina, they showed their flaws. They're letting a couple of late goals.
You're kind of saying that it's maybe one for the underdogs. And in this match, we are the underdog.
Yeah, I suppose if you go on record, them being world champions at the moment, we are the underdogs. However, I think going on form, we are, in my opinion, favourites. Because, you know, Declan Rice, Jude Bellingham in centre, you can't beat it at the moment. Jude has been unreal this tournament.
So England fans are feeling confident. French fans, I would say, quietly confident. Maybe not as confident as they were before. They do fear the England team. They know the England team have players that can hurt the French, and they know that both sides know each other really well. But as one French fan said to me this morning, we absolutely cannot lose to the English. So it's going to be fascinating to watch how it pans out later. But before that, in an hour and a half's time, Portugal take on Morocco, and of course the winner of that match will play the winner of the England-France game. And we've already got the other semi-final lined up, with Brazil getting knocked out in a huge shock yesterday. So it'll be the other semi-final is Croatia against Argentina, which is sure to be a cracker as well. Lots of great football to look forward to.
Talk to you tomorrow, I'm sure. Have to ask you one question. What are those extraordinary things over your shoulder? Is that street architecture, or is it people in Cosy?
Where's that? Is that this over here? This tree?
Like kind of furry stumps that seem lit up.
This is kind of like a big silver tree, which kind of marks the South American football area, and there's loads of like little games, and if you look down here, there's a little cage where kids can play football. I've seen grown-ups in there as well. Actually, let me just show you this very quickly, because this one fascinates me. If you just follow me over here, this one, so you can play football, right? Over here there's some interactive football games as well, but this one is VAR. So I mean, I've never heard of anything so weird, but clearly there's two gentlemen there who are having lots of fun recreating VAR. Not something I've ever thought was particularly something I wanted to recreate, but that's the kind of interactivity of the exhibition.
Send my mate Danny Baker out there, who hates VAR more than anything I think in the world. Paul, you're doing a brilliant job, and thank you so much for finding those fantastically articulate, passionate fans. And I know you do a great job for us tonight, and look forward to talking to you again on the show tomorrow. Take care of yourself, and I hope you manage to enjoy the football. Fingers crossed. Paul Hawkins live there in Qatar, Doha for us. And he has done a brilliant job from start to finish. I'd just like to put that on record. We've been inundated here with more of your views, for which thank you very much indeed. Gwen says, as a kid, I survived the winter of 1962. I then enjoyed the three-day week in 1973 while at secondary school. No central heating. Mum put a towel on the windowsills to collect the melted ice running off the metal-framed Crittall windows during the day. We will just have to adapt. Steve says the gap between those that have and those that will not will widen. Christmas will now polarise our communities. I think that's a real danger, which is what I was getting at when I was talking to the psychologist earlier on about children. This competitive spirit, I've got it and you haven't got it and you want it, not nice at all. And fears that it will increase that gap between those who have and those who have not. And it will polarise communities, and that is always a negative. Jean comes in and says, I'm just getting my head down and carrying on as normal. It is the British way. Shortages of what? Everything that I want and need seems there. Well done you. Congratulations. Just work round it. If you can't find what you want, something else will do. I think that's probably very sound advice there from Jean. Do keep the views coming in. And, of course, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We are GB News there. You can find all of the previous programmes that we've done, plus a series of the interviews that we've done that I hope you will find a mixture of enlightening and even occasionally entertaining. But it's all there on our YouTube channel, GB News. Now, you're watching and listening to Alastair Stewart and Friends, with plenty more still to come this afternoon in our final 30 minutes or so, including opening Christmas presents if you are lucky enough, and I'm sure you are. It is one of the joys of this festive season. But what about all of that wrapping paper waste? Well, you can still enjoy beautifully wrapped gifts without taking a toll on the environment. We'll have all of the best alternatives next, right after this short break.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents. Whether you're with us on TV, radio or online, every morning it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Welcome back. It is 1:45. You're watching and listening Alastair Stewart and Friends here on GB News, TV and radio. And thank you very much indeed for so doing. Best Christmas present I could possibly have. And nothing quite beats opening a good present. But we do produce a lot of waste when it comes to wrapping them. And lots of the wrapping can be recycled, of course, but not all of it. So what are the best alternatives to wrapping paper to make sure that we don't generate a lot of unnecessary waste and stuff that can't be recycled? I am delighted to be joined live in the studio by the absolute expert. Tina Nandar is the founder of Wrap It by Tina. She is a professional gift wrapper and trainer and can also tell us all about the alternatives to wrapping paper that are out there, particularly to those ones that some people absolutely adore, the shiny, shiny stuff that sometimes has cartoon characters on it and all the rest of it, that simply cannot be recycled in any way. What in your handbook are the no-go ones? What must we avoid like the plague?
The foils.
Yeah.
Anything with glitter on them.
And that can't even go in a box that's recycling tin cans and stuff?
No, not at all. We normally tend to do a scrunch test, and as long as the paper doesn't bounce back, then that can be recycled. But if it bounces back, then there's elements of plastic in there, there's elements of foils. Even if paper does stay scrunched, if it's got glitter on it, it cannot be recycled, I'm afraid.
Simply because it's that metallic stuff. Right. You also told me via the team one that I knew about that because my wife is an absolute stickler for it and says that's a no-go area because it's ghastly stuff and you can't do anything with it afterwards. I hadn't thought of sellotape or sticky tape.
So there are companies that are making zero plastic tape now. The stickiness on them doesn't last as long, but it does the job.
But the body of the tape is plastic, and plastic, as always, is no-no.
Yeah, plastic is a no-no. And the tape is made from plant-based sort of molecules, so right. it's biodegradable tape.
And sitting on the table in front of you is what my wife's answer to it was, is just nice ribbon.
Definitely.
Or bit of string.
And ribbon holds designs in place as well. I mean, this is a wrap made out of a Primark bag, and you can get lots of shopping bags that are made out of paper and reuse them. Why throw them away when we can reuse them?
We should stress and underline other retail outlets.
Other retailers, yes, sorry. But even if you don't use shopping bags, you can use just plain brown paper as well. Pick some foliage from the neighbour's garden.
When you came in, I thought I've admitted this one to you already. When I saw that one year, our eldest son wrapped all of his gifts, even quite big ones, in that beautiful traditional brown paper, which is just so nice and has a kind of texture and smell to it, which is lovely. And that same year, another of our sons, can you see this on the camera here? This is recycled newspaper, in the sense it's been recycled as wrapping paper. And one year, Freddie, our middle son, did all of his gifts in old newspapers. Yeah. And it was fantastic. And if you look here, close up on that one, so when you finished unwrapping it, you've then got a crossword puzzle as an additional prezi.
That's right. 2 presents in one. And it looks pretty as well, so you never have to worry about it looking boring when it's finished. And I think that's why a lot of people tend to go for the foils or the metallics, because they stand out, yes. They are eye-catching, but you can still have eye-catching and environmentally
and totally eye-catching there, because the other thing you said to the team is it's partly about using your imagination, and that's just a fistful from the garden.
That is, and it's just brown paper, but I've created a nice pleated style with it, so it has something to it. I mean, even without the foliage there, it still looks really nice as well. This is just extra, and you can add it to absolutely anything. This can go straight into your compost bin, the paper straight into the recycling bin. And,
or into a vase with some flowers, somebody might be nice enough to go.
Yeah, once it's done.
Tell me this, are you a fan of my favourite scene in the famous Absolutely Christmas movie with Rowan Atkinson playing the character in the department store who is you, in effect, with the little lavender and little this, little that?
Oh, it's lovely.
Love Actually.
Yeah, it's lovely to see people being innovative with gift wrapping, and this proves that you can be. So, yeah, adding all those bits on top and still being environmentally friendly is completely doable this Christmas.
How do you make absolutely sure you don't cut your fingers when you're doing that on other paper?
The amount I deal with, I can't guarantee it. But if you're doing it, generally, just be mindful where the paper ends. I've come with lots of paper cuts today, but I get used to it after a while.
Absolutely brilliant. So no metallic paper, avoid plastic sellotape, avoid anything that's got tinsely bits and bobs in it. And don't forget, in the garden, you'll find some of the best little bits and pieces that you can add. And shopping bags from Primark or indeed any other retail outlet that you use can be worked into a good purpose. And I personally thoroughly recommend newspapers, because it's a great idea and it's instantly and easily recyclable. Huge thanks to you. I really enjoyed that item and learnt a great deal from it. So thank you very, very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
You continue to get in touch with your thoughts, not on rapping. You may now start to do that, and you'll be very welcome so to do. But you are clearly engaged in our conversation about the strikes and the winter that lies ahead. Let's get some more of your thoughts on that, starting with Keith, who says those who don't strike make themselves victims of government inaction. If people were paid a decent wage, nobody would need to go on strike. That is down to their employer and indeed government, he says. Kaz says, I'm really not pleased about the strikes, but if I step down from my own inconveniences, then the government is taking no notice of any of us. How do we make changes? No one's allowed to say anything. I don't know the answer, but we are not listened to. The rich get richer and the gap between the rich and poor gets wider. Whilst power and greed rules, it is a tough environment in which to try and make change. I don't like them, but therefore I go in those circumstances for strikes. Now, I suspect that we all know the power of music to cheer us up, make us cry, just get those emotions really running, not least at this time of year. But can a really good song improve your health? You may have heard the brilliant Vicky McClure's Dementia Choir on television before, but now the Alzheimer's Society are bringing people together affected by the condition, and they are singing together this Christmas and indeed beyond. And you'll remember, I hope, that a couple of weeks ago we did a very serious item on a new drug that had gone through clinical trials that could help folk with Alzheimer's. So it's just wonderful to have this conversation as well. Peter Edwards is the leader of the Singing for the Brain for London and the South East region, and he's here with me in the studio. Not a clinical trial on the merits of singing, you just know.
There have been some studies, and it does show that there's improvement in people with dementia. As you were saying, that there's no cure for dementia and won't be one for some time, but there are treatments.
But is it the concentration that's required to sing properly and learn the piece? Because I do know, we were joking about crossword puzzles earlier, that if you think you may have dementia coming on, then things like crossword puzzles and even times tables to keep the old brain active and the cylinders all firing.
I think it's almost the opposite, because this is an easy thing. It's something where people find it's very accessible. They have a memory which survives, because the memory for music and pleasure is stored in the hippocampus, which is the last thing to be affected. So therefore, people will come along and they may not be able to put words together. They may not know what they had for breakfast or even where they've come to. Sure. But in the environment, suddenly they spring to life. And they know the songs, and it's inherent in the music in a way that it goes to certain places, it has certain intervals, and it has associations. Yeah.
One of the points that a number of people in Vicky McClure's brilliant programme, and my family and I thoroughly enjoyed it, was the undeniable medical advantage of just bringing folk together.
Yes, there's a huge social benefit. Yeah. Self-esteem, both for the person with dementia and the carer, because sometimes they're feeling hopeless and useless at being able to help with this person. They come to, and the social grouping is amazing, and the carers will often form bonds themselves, self-help groups, and we collaborate. It's not just that they come one day a week and sing and go away again. We've done projects where we've taken people and recorded them with new arrangements of songs and put that online, and in fact people can download it still.
That might be the answer to my next question, which is, if you're listening to this conversation and someone in your family is possibly early onset, how can they get involved if they think that ticks boxes as they've heard you just articulate it?
Well, for a start, that you can just be involved by singing with the person. Think about what was a big popular hit at the time when they are early teens. And just beyond that, and just see what the kind of response you get. Most people with dementia will respond very positively to music, not all, but most. And then you can go to Alzheimer's Society website and look for Singing for the Brain.
Yeah.
You can become even more involved by becoming what we call a delivery partner. So Alzheimer's Society will train you and lend you the branding and all the support of that to create a small group, might be 2 or 3, 4 people in your neighbourhood, because with the best will in the world, with approaching a million people with dementia in the next few years.
So how big are you in terms of the choir reach? Because I described you as being London and the South East. That's a big old patch.
Well, our reach was enormous during the pandemic because we went online via Zoom. And one of the things I think, if you're an ethnic minority and you're thinking, well, they're singing songs that we don't really know, we didn't grow up with Burl Ives or Doris Day or whoever it might be, is you could start a group online and you could reach from... We had one session where someone was in Los Angeles and someone else was in India, and it was just like they're in the same room, of course.
Yeah.
But our reach is generally within Croydon or Merton, where I work.
Brilliant.
Normally. Yeah.
Let's finish. Give folk at home just the website address.
OK, so it's alzheimers.org.uk. And there's also, you can then look on for the Dementia Connect helpline and talk to someone. And there's always going to be someone there who'll come back to you with whatever help you need.
And it may help a good friend of yours who really needs help, or someone within your family. Do that now. It's a great idea. Real pleasure to meet you.
Thank you very much,
for breaking into your weekend to come and talk to us there. We'll be back at 12 o'clock tomorrow night. He and I won't be. I will be. He's doing much better things to do, I'm sure. But David, great to meet you, and thank you very, very much indeed. From both of us, do please enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining us.
Looking ahead to this afternoon, and the UK is looking cold but dry for most, although wintry showers continuing at some coastal areas. Let's take a look at the details. Staying dry with plenty of sunny spells for much of Scotland today, but some snow showers continuing for central and eastern areas. Feeling very cold with moderate northeasterly winds. Showers persist across to eastern Northern Ireland this afternoon with sleet or snow in places. Some brighter spells at times, but feeling very cold. A cold, cloudy afternoon for northwestern England with a risk of some wintry showers, particularly over high ground. Drier with brighter spells further east. Cloudy in the far northwest of Wales with showers, which may be wintry in places, particularly over high ground, throughout Saturday. Drier further east with brighter spells at times, but feeling very cold. Generally dry across the East Midlands with plenty of sunny spells, although some mist and fog may linger through the afternoon, feeling very cold, with some spots staying close to freezing all day. Staying mostly dry across East Anglia, although the odd light shower may skirt far eastern coasts. Sunny spells further west, although feeling cold, with many places staying close to freezing. A mostly dry afternoon in the south of England with plenty of sunshine, although a few light showers at far southern coasts. It's remaining very cold into Saturday evening with wintry showers at the coasts and a frost developing for many. And that is how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
There's a guy who went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.